Hey friends, it's Peter Loudis, your DFW local realtor. I wanted to take a few moments to go over some questions that you should ask when buying your first home or buying your second home. These are the top questions, top 5 that I typically see when I'm discussing houses with colleagues, friends, with clients. And so these are probably the top 5 questions that I've seen that you may see. So I just wanted to go through those real quick. Maybe it'll be a benefit to you. The first one is going to seem super obvious, so silly that I even have to say it maybe, but you'd be surprised. How much house can you afford? So very simple question, how much house can you afford? I like to reiterate this one because so many people get hung up on what the total cost is. I don't want us to afford more than X amount of a house. That's great. I really like to kind of redirect and say, well, let's look at maybe how much that monthly payment is, because that monthly payment is what you're going to live with, not necessarily the total cost of the house. There's a few things that go into the monthly payment. It's going to be your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, which your taxes and insurance can fluctuate and change. They can go up or down. So it depends on what's happening in the market around you. Here in DFW, as I like to coach all my clients and friends, your taxes are probably going to go up as values increase in the surrounding area. So something to think about. If you're comfortable with the payment now, if the taxes and insurance go up, will you be comfortable with it 1, 2, 3, 10 years down the road? So first question seems so simple, but how much house can you afford? Talk with the local lender. Those calculators that are out there are fantastic, but a local lender is really going to be able to help drill down all those numbers and get you to a level that you're comfortable with for your house payment. The next question is, how many houses are we going to look at? I like to show some props here. Is it going to be 1 or 2 houses? Is it going to be 10 or 20 houses? I've shown anywhere from 1 or 2 houses before someone makes a decision and they know that's the house for them. Or I've shown, 30, 40, 50, 60, up to, 120 houses before until someone figures out which house is right for them. It depends. Everyone's different. I will say that with the great tools you have at your disposal these days, with all the amazing online web platforms, you can look at houses, you can see their photos, you can get floor plans, you can even look at the street view before you step into the house. So fantastic. So I'm seeing that number actually decrease. We look at less houses typically in person because people have so much information at their fingertips. You can pretty much define and figure out where you want to live, what's important to you, and it's all at your fingertips on all these great web platforms. So it really depends. One tool I will say that I highly recommend is Google Maps Street View. I've got a lot of clients that are relocating into DFW and maybe they're not familiar with the neighborhood like I'm familiar with the neighborhood. So I always recommend, hey, look at the street view. See if you're comfortable with those neighbors that are there. It may be outdated, but if there is a big landfill across the street, probably won't change here in the next couple of years if that landfill is going to go away or not. So just a silly example there, but Google Street View is fantastic. Take a look at it, and that'll help determine how many houses you might look at. The next question that I see is probably, what will the seller take? How much is the seller going to take? Would they take this number? Would they take that number? It depends. It depends on what the seller's motivation is. Typically, a good rule of thumb is the seller will probably not be too offended if you offer 5% off the ask price. Typically, it just depends though. Maybe it's price to sell. Always lean on the data. What do the comps say? So get with your local agent and see what the comparables say. I always pull a comparable market analysis, a CMA, to see what similar houses have sold for, so we can give that data to my client and we can really figure out, what's a realistic number. Typically though, 5% is a good rule of thumb on what will the seller take. Another question that we see, number 4, is this house a good deal? Well, once again, you're going to love my answer. It depends. It depends on what your motivations are, what your goals are. Are you looking to stay in that house short term or long term? That might affect if the house is a good deal or not. Maybe it's an up and coming area that you're going to sit on for 5, 10 years. And so maybe, that house is a good deal. But if you're going to be moving in 12 months, maybe not so. So really look at what those goals are for you, and your agent's going to be able to help show you the data and see if that house is a good deal or not. Last question is, how long does it take to close? Get this question all the time. It depends on you and your lender. A good local lender can close you anywhere from maybe 24 days to 32 days. Really depends. 30 days is a pretty typical close timeline. So if you're trying to line up your current lease term or selling a house and you want to figure out how long is it going to take to close, usually about 30 to 35 days is a pretty typical closing, but it depends. I've seen anywhere from 14 days with a very speedy expedited closing with a lender up to 60 days. So it just depends. I'd say about 30 days is a good rule of thumb. So those are the few of the questions that I've seen a lot in this market here in DFW. If you've got other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, peter@ebby.com. You can contact me there or at my phone number below. Thanks everyone so much. Happy house hunting, and we'll see you next time.